Welcome to today's interview on Brighteon.com. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon, and today we're joined by Peymon Mottahedeh from freedomlawschool.org, and he is, of course, an advocate of liberty, as well as helping us get the government off our backs. We're going to talk about the weaponization of federal agencies and much more here today with Peymon. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on, sir.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Well, this is the first time we've had an opportunity to speak, but we have, I think, aligned in our circles and philosophy for many, many years. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and Freedom Law School, just to begin.
Well, I'm an immigrant, Jewish immigrant from Iran, came here in 1977 at the age of 14, and I thought I came to a land of the free, home of the brave, and I found myself in a land of the meek and the indentured slaves. So I became a libertarian when I was in the University of California, and became a Libertarian Party activist in '89 as soon as I became a U.S. citizen. And I heard about the income tax being voluntary because I was a total advocate of freedom from a get-go, and just got into it full force saying, look, folks, we got to fund libertarians instead of the Democratic and Republicrats who are bought and paid for by the big monies and banks. They're the whores of these guys.
Yep.
They don't represent us. We got to get more Ron Pauls in there. So that's how eventually led me to 1996 to create Freedom Law School.
Wow. Okay, and Freedom Law School, as I understand it, again, this is the first time I'm learning about it, but you help teach people about the tools that they can use to help, free themselves from oppressive government mandates and the bluffery of the IRS and things like that, right?
Yes, all areas of freedom in 1996, but I focused over the last 20 years even more specifically on the It's Really Satan IRS.
Right.
Okay? That is a one government agency that universally most Americans are afraid of, and that is the agency that funds all the crooks and criminals in DOJ, FBI, CIA, NSA, FDA, CDC, you name it. All of them are funded by the federal tax dollars that we have been duped to voluntarily pay our enemies to destroy us. And I've been telling people, folks, we got to stop shooting ourselves in the head. We don't have to pay them legally anything, any federal taxes, number one. Number two, we need to fund the freedom movement because the hour is late. We got to take action now.
Wow, so you said some pretty profound things right there. You're saying that Americans are not obliged to pay taxes to the IRS. I think I heard you say that. You're saying it's voluntary. We've heard of people attempting these kinds of arrangements over the years and just refusing to file. That didn't work for a lot of people, but that's not what you're talking about, right? You're talking about using the law, or what's your approach?
The law is on our side. The way law is written, as you will find on government's own official legal websites, is the U.S. citizen, the U.S. individual that must file and pay income tax is a citizen and residents of Washington, D.C. That is a definition of the United States in the federal tax laws, the Internal Revenue Code. Not the 50 states definition that we use. We think about, I'm a citizen of the United States for nationality purposes, so are you. But for tax purposes, we are foreign to the United States of Washington, D.C. Those people got to pay income tax. For them, it's mandatory. The rest of us in the 50 states have been duped into filing 10 for income tax confession forms, put rope around our neck, tell the IRS we owe the money, and fund all the criminality of these government gangsters.
So are you then able to show people how to successfully challenge this? Because as we know, the IRS can be very threatening. They can, threaten to basically confiscate everything you own and, shut down your business and throw you in prison if you even just make a simple mistake.
Well, I've done that. I've been teaching, I have not filed and paid $1 to the federal government openly, and I've been teaching other people to do the same for the last 30 years. And for 20 years, I've had plans where I help people completely with the IRS. And as long as people stop filing and paying income tax with me first and follow my instructions, not one of them has gone to prison. Not one of them has lost $1 to the IRS by levying their paycheck, bank account, or assets and homes. They're all been safe. The IRS is mostly bluff. And the way they get you is to convince you to do the very thing that weakens you and gives them the power. That is by filing a 1040 income tax confession trap form. You admit under oath that you owe the IRS money. And that's why they're able to take your stuff, because you give up your right to due process of law to challenge them when you confess under oath that you owe them money. So the first step after educating yourself about the law is to quit filing those 1040 income tax confession forms and regain your power once again.
So you help people then help solve issues from here forward, because maybe in years past they've filed the 1040s. I mean, I know my accountants have always annually filed 1040s, for me. And then I've paid ungodly amounts of money to the IRS over the years. But you're saying that people could stop that habit from here forward?
And you will not need those accountants any more than you need your medical doctors who tell you you should get the corona hoax jab. They are the same. They've been deceived. They've been lied to. They've been misdirected to control you, to be a slave, to be scared of the coronavirus, and you should get the jab to be safe. The accountants, CPAs, tax lawyers are the same. They do not know the tax law. CPAs are not taught anything about the Internal Revenue Code in school. Tax lawyers, same thing. They're not taught that in law school. They learn on the job, and pretty much what they do is follow whatever the IRS says. Once you're in the game, file a 1040 confession from trap form, you take the jab, you're theirs.
Yeah.
So the first step is stop taking the jab, stop filing a 1040 confession trap form. Look, I'm not in prison. Look at me. 30 years. IRS knows about me. They've challenged me. I've beaten them in their own tax court, their own district courts. Never try to indict me. Why?
Yeah, well, that's a question that I have too. Because, by the way, I'm pretty sure that all mainstream accountants basically work for the IRS. I mean, that's all they do is, all the accountants that I've ever worked with that were mainstream accountants, they're just, you gotta pay this and this and this and this and this and this. We're not really sure, but you should pay it just in case. I'm like, what? Like who are you working for? I'm paying you. Shouldn't you maybe at least have a fair shot of the interpretation of this in my favor? They're like, no, you just should pay everything. So I've seen that firsthand. But what about people like Wesley Snipes? Who ended up going to prison because I think he just refused to file. I don't know exactly the details of that case, but what about guys like that ended up in prison?
Well, first of all, the vast majority of people that go to prison are people that filed and put the 1040 rope around their own neck. Over 90% of them are filers. Number one. Number two, Wesley Snipes did what many patriots, unfortunately, out there do. He followed these baseless legal theories like I'm a sovereign state citizen, I'm a U.S. national, not a U.S. citizen. My name in all capital letters is not me. It's my straw man they captured through my birth certificate, which was sold to the Department of Commerce. I'm back under common law, not an Admiralty Yellow Finch flag.
Yeah, we've heard all that, yeah.
All that is utter garbage and nonsense. Mike, let me tell you this, brother. I'm the only one in a tax truth freedom movement in the history of America since World War II for the leader of the organization not go to prison, not be put out of business by the IRS, and quit. And I'm the only one that actually has beaten the IRS repeatedly.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Times. So that tells me that I know what I'm doing because I come from Iran and I came with an open mind about all this stuff. So why is America not a free country? It doesn't make sense. You have the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. The law says your rights come from God, not the government. Why aren't you Americans free? So I stayed very humble in my 20s and 30s to learn all this stuff. And I learned from the best out there. And I'm teaching people we can defund these guys, Mike, literally, and fund the freedom movement and get our freedoms back.
Well, let me add to that with the following line of thinking, and I'd like your reaction to it, because I've said this in my podcast, that it's a lie that the government needs taxpayer money to fund itself. That's a lie. They can print money, and they do whenever they want, by the trillions. And we saw it during COVID. They can just print trillions of dollars. They can bail out Big Pharma. They can bail out airlines. They can print money to do whatever they want. They don't need a dime of your money. But then we see in the mainstream media, they're always attacking, people like you, who they might call a tax protester, let's say. They would say, well, you're being irresponsible because who's going to fund the government? What about revenue for the government, right? So what would you say to that?
It's very simple. We've been lied to, deceived in a public fool system, the communist school system we have today, which is that the government services we really need, which is the police, the sheriffs, the courts, roads, maybe schools, all those things are paid for by our state and local taxes.
That's right.
Like property tax and sales tax. We don't need the federal income tax. We could get rid of 95% of the federal government budgets, and still the federal government has too much money, and we're completely safe from all foreign adversaries as well. That's how corrupt it is. The money is being wasted down the rat hole of corruption, criminality, and waste to enslave and kill us.
Yeah.
That's what they do with our money. With the federal taxes.
Well, we've seen the weaponization of the federal agencies, especially under Biden now. So the DOJ has been turned into some kind of vicious dictatorial prosecutorial machine, taking out the political enemies of the Biden regime, right? The FBI is the largest terrorism operation in the United States, running around actually recruiting people to carry out acts of terrorism like no one's business, It was insane. Since 9/11, America, the government and the media talking about, Middle Eastern terrorists. No, the number one terrorist group is called the FBI, and that's on the record. The New York Times even covered that. The Kansas City Star covered that. So we know, our audience knows what's going on, but here's a question. Do the judges know the law? So if you have a client that gets into a criminal charge or a lawsuit by the IRS, then and they take the facts to the court, as you're talking about, the law is on your side. But do the judges even care? Because I've seen so many cases where judges don't care what the law is. They're just going to side with the regime that pays their salary.
But first of all, none of my students that stayed with me has ever gone to prison with the IRS. And that's number one. Came to me clean and stayed with me. That's number one. Number two, in America, as opposed to Iran and most of the world, Mike, we have what's called a jury trial. You get to have 12 American citizens to judge you, and all of them must agree beyond the reasonable doubt standard that you're guilty before you can be put in prison. That's huge that we have jury trial in America. And so what I do with our students is very simple. I teach them the law. And one of the key things is we have these petitions, letters to Congress that lays the law from the government's legal websites, quoted, listed, and attached. And we write to Congressman and say, look, if I'm wrong on this, please let me know. I will pay my fair share of taxes. Right? You must go after the DOJ and the IRS management and even some corrupt judges who are keeping this corrupt system going and put an end to it. Now, with that, all you got to do if they are stupid enough to come after you, you got your evidence of innocence right there. You tell the jury, I did all this. Wrote my lawmakers, if I'm wrong, to tell me they never did. Here are the letters to see for yourself. No DOJ lawyer would be stupid enough to put that guy before a jury. Just like January 6th, Mike. The reason Jason Chansley's out, the QAnon guy, is because Tucker Carlson put out the videos of him walking through the Capitol with Capitol Police. That was the evidence of his innocence. All these J6 prisoners are in there because the crooked DOJ refused to give them the camera footage that shows their innocence.
But doesn't the IRS try to force people into their special tax court where there is no jury?
No, they don't. The reason they don't, because there's only just about 30 tax court judges for over 300 million Americans. There's one tax court judge per 10 million Americans. Less than one tax court judge per state. There's no way they can come after all of us. It's humanly not possible for 30 people to come after all of us. So what they do is they use the same crooked media to make you believe IRS is God and powerful, and you're just a weak little ant. We'll get you. So get in line, shut up and do as we tell you, take the corona jab, file tax returns, and don't ask questions and don't even think about this stuff.
Right, they do. It's intimidation. But you know, what's interesting is that's how COVID was run as well. It was all intimidation, a psychological operation to make people fearful. They rebranded the flu as COVID to get people to go into the hospitals where they murdered them with ventilators and remdesivir and deprived people of ivermectin. I mean, it was a massive psychological terrorism campaign run by the government and the media.
Yep. So the same thing been going on for over 100 years. So the corona hoax started collapsing after about a year because people like you and me start asking questions right off the bat. When March 2020 happened, I said, this is a scam. I don't have my finger on it, but it's a scam that eventually is coming out more and more. But with the IRS, they brainwashed us for over 100 years of taking the 1040 jab. And so it takes a little bit more education. And the only real solid education is on our website, freedomlawschool.org. I have 7 steps there, Mike, for people to free themselves of IRS deception. Number 1, they fool you. I tell you the truth. That's our website right there. Restore Freedom, you see right there. And
7 steps. Yeah, I see it.
7 steps right there. And then of the IRS robbery and slavery. The first 5 steps are absolutely free. You ought to use it. The videos are there. Everything is there so that you can free yourself and keep 100% of your money. The other 2 steps are for the modern day founding fathers who want to restore freedom, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Patrick Henry. If you're one of those kind of people, the last 2 steps are optional, are available to those few people as well.
So, okay, that's fantastic. And the website, again, is freedomlawschool.org. Then do you, for those last 2 steps, do you offer kind of, is it hands-on consulting for clients, or are you giving them materials where they take it from there on their own? How does it work?
Well, we follow on the experience of the founding fathers, all for one for all. They, founding fathers, refused to pay taxes to the corrupt King of England. He ignored the petitions for the king violating the Englishmen's rights in the colonies. We're doing the same thing. Right? Petition to our representatives in Congress. Hey, you represent we the people, not the people that pay for your election campaign. So we are paying a tax that we legally owe at all. But if people choose to participate and contribute to the Freedom Fund, Restore Freedom Fund, now what we can do is give the person complete consultation, support, and representation with CPAs and attorneys as necessary, paid by Freedom Law School. And so you're completely protected, and we guarantee you will not go to prison, number 1. And number 2, even if we were to lose a case, or take your funds from you, we as a group will refund that money to you completely, make you whole. So that way we can all get in there because we know they cannot get all of us at the same time, and it's inevitable that we roll over them because, as you see in a Bug's Life cartoon, this grasshopper tells his buddies, these owls outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
So
It's not about food. It's
you
about
have a
keeping
vehicle for
life.
pooling tax risk and also offering tax consulting and representation, like you said. So, but in doing this, I mean, first of all, that sounds really fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people will check it out. But clearly, the IRS is watching you and will no doubt watch this video, and they would be wanting to shut you down like nothing else. I mean, surely you know you're making yourself a big target, but is it that you're not afraid because the law's on your side, or what's your take?
Not only the law's on my side, I have a track record of it. Back in '94, IRS had me for a year and a half under criminal investigation as a potential fraudulent tax protest promoter.
Wow. Those are a lot of labels right there.
Yeah. In 2003, I was notified they were looking at me as a potential fraudulent tax shelter promoter, abusive tax shelter. They closed that after 13 years in 2016. In 2006, they had me under another criminal investigation and subpoenaed the hotel where I had my freedom events going on that year.
Really?
They summoned the hotel records, and I sued the IRS, the government, and the agent in court and forced them to remove that summons, and the criminal investigation went away. So I'm on investigation all the time. They know me.
They know exactly who you are. Yeah.
They know who I am. This is all First Amendment, my friend. This is what First Amendment's all about. Free speech, freedom of press to publish material, to associate with people, with each other like you and I, assemble, get together, have a faith to be free, so we can petition the government for redress of our grievances to clean up corrupt government. We're following the line that the founding fathers provided us before we go to Second Amendment, which I hope we never have to do that.
What would you say about the national retail sales tax idea as a replacement for the current IRS tax code? Because let me just say this from my opinion as an American, I have nothing against paying some percentage of all my consumption purchases if it's actually being used in a way that represents the American people, which of course it's not. But what I really despise about the IRS is the surveillance, the criminal aspects of it, where they can threaten you if you made a mistake. They can threaten you if they lost your mail. I've had that happen. You send in whatever, this and that, your accountants do, who knows all the forms. And then I have one accountant who used to work for the IRS that says, yeah, they have an entire floor of a building in Texas of unopened mail. There's nobody even sitting on that floor. It's just mail that they haven't opened. And those could be refunds. Those could be, protests. It could be filings. In other words, the IRS has no obligation to carry out, their part of this so-called deal, but then they criminalize all of us. That's what really rubs me the wrong way with this. What would you say to all that?
Well, first of all, the reason they get that power over you again, because you put the rope around your neck, that 1040 form, read the signature line, Mike. You filed a 1040 last year. Next to your signature, it says under penalties of perjury. You signed that thinking, no big deal. My accountants will sign it. But that means that you say everything on the form is true, correct, and complete. A form that you don't understand. You are trusting the opinion of your doctor, CPA, same thing, to take the jab, to sign the doggone form without knowing what's in the vial of the vaccine or what is actually the tax law says about you.
Nobody can understand the tax code.
So once you stop doing that right there, that's 99% of your victory. You don't hang yourself. That's the key thing I say to that.
Okay. But then aren't you going to start receiving letters from the IRS that says you didn't file, you're obliged to file? That I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. I've never tried that, but is that correct?
Nope.
No.
That's kind of how it used to be, Mike.
Oh. Okay.
The Soviet Union collapsed, so is the IRS. Joseph Stalin's communist dictatorship was powerful all the way through 50s and 60s, and in 70s, the collapse started, and by 1999, it dissolved. Until 2010, IRS used to send some kind of a computerized letter to non-filers, people who don't file 1040 forms, to intimidate them into filing the 1040 income tax confession form. However, since the Republicans were upset at IRS for many legitimate reasons, they cut the funding of the IRS. And the collapse of the IRS roots back to 2010. And since then, IRS forced collection or levies have got down. They've went down not by 20 or 50, but by 90%. They cannot even go after filers who confess to the IRS money to collect that money from them. And for every $1 on filers, they make over $300. Whereas for non-filers like me, for every $1, they only make $2. So IRS management made a decision about that time, in the mid-2000 years, 2015, about that time, to completely leave non-filers alone.
Really?
Once in a while, they come across you, the agent may work your case, but leave your non-filers alone because they can't even handle filers.
What about the Biden regime saying they're going to have all this new funding for the IRS? You know, you've seen the headlines, of course, 87,000 new IRS agents that are threatening to go door to door, knocking on people's doors. That sounds dangerous, by the way. I mean, for any profession to run around knocking on people's doors asking for money, like, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, as you heard on the news came out, IRS formally announced they will not be knocking on people's doors
I did see that.
Yeah, and they're doing that because they've already stopped doing that. Why? Because they're losing agents fast. Of the 80,000 employees they have, more than half, about 55,000 of them, are slated for retirement in the next 5 years.
No kidding.
That's a huge brain drain of the IRS. So they're hiring 8,700 new agents per year for 10 years to minimize the damage caused by these chunk of the oldest, most experienced IRS employees leaving. That's all that is.
I see.
They're falling apart anyways.
Wow. And I can't imagine anybody wanting to work at the IRS under these circumstances where you have years of backlogged mail taking up entire floors of buildings. And basically you're in the business of just stealing from people. I mean,
well, IRS is the most LGBTQ plus woke government organization out there. They don't hire you based upon competence. They want to fill up sexual, gender, and racial quotas. So you just fill up a space. They're not doing anything. Now they're just collecting a paycheck. It's all based upon you having been deceived into the matrix, believing the matrix is powerful over you, and you cannot get out, to continue to file 1040 confession forms. And then when you're done with this, you say, Peymon, I went to talk to my accountant, my doctor. He said, don't listen to him. He's all a bunch of wrong. And he went, you go listen to him. Don't let your doctor, your CPA, stop you from investigating the truth on our website, freedomlawschool.org, because all the tools for freedom are there for you to free yourself.
now, what about corporations, C Corps in particular, or limited partnerships, things like that, different structures? How does that work in your information?
Same thing. Only corporations that are organized in or under the laws of the federal government, they have to pay income tax. So Walmart in Arkansas does not have to pay any income tax at all. Same thing goes for estate tax. Same thing goes for gun-making taxes. And even the payroll taxes, Social Security, all this kind of stuff, do not apply to the people of the 50 states.
What about state taxes in a particular state, like state income taxes of a resident in that state, like California, let's say?
Well, America, as you know, Mike, is 50 countries or states in a union. Every state is a country. California, Texas, New York are countries, just like France, Germany, and Italy are in the European Union, countries within that union.
Right.
That's why each state has its own legislature, governor, and Supreme Court. So of the 42 states that claim to have a state income tax, almost all of them, they have chosen to follow the federal tax laws and or federal tax forms. Therefore, if you're not required to file and pay federal income tax, you are not required to file and pay state income tax. There's only 4 states that we found out that are different. That is Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Alabama, and Mississippi. The other states, they follow the federal.
Wow. Well, what about those 4 states? What, they have their own homegrown tax code?
They have the sovereignty to have their tax laws not be dependent on federal tax law or tax forms or federal definitions. They could do that or not. These 4 states chose not to, but most of the states have chosen to do it that way. So if you don't owe any federal income tax for all the other states, you don't owe any for the state tax either.
So what you're saying, I mean, look, this is astonishing and somewhat refreshing to hear, and I can tell you're very passionate about what you're presenting here, and I assume you have a lot of success cases of this. But a skeptic watching this would say, well, gosh, what if I start to follow your advice and I don't file, and I tell them to go pound sand, and then they end up seizing my house, seizing my business, seizing my bank accounts, right? Those kinds of things, because they threaten to do that all the time. And the thing is, the IRS threatens this even when they don't need to, even when it's just some little thing like, oh, you forgot to check this checkbox, we're going to take your house. It's like, what? What is that? Why is all that necessary?
Well, you haven't heard of the book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, Mike?
Yeah, The Art of War, you bet.
Yeah. And that's a book written by a Chinese general thousands of years ago on how to win any battle most effectively. You know what's the number one way he says to win any war?
To appear strong when you are weak.
That's right.
Yes.
And to convince your enemy that the smartest, safest thing for them to do is to surrender to you without a fight.
That's right.
And that's what the corrupt major media does for the allies in the deep state in the government. They convince you through fear and intimidation and propaganda that if you don't file income tax, ours will put you in jail, take your bank account, and paycheck. But Mike, listen to this. I have a letter on our website, freedomlawschool.org. In 1998, IRS said that in 1996, they estimated there was about 63 million Americans who did not file income tax returns. Until the IRS had appeared, they had a legal requirement to file. Think about that. 63 million Americans who do not file, are they all in jail? Their paychecks and bank accounts seized?
No.
Of course not. Today it's about 80 million. And in fact, practically speaking, 1 out of 3 Americans does not file a 1040 confession form, while the other 2 do file a 1040 confession form. They cannot keep track of all of us. They don't even notice you. In fact, I have another government report from the Treasury Inspector General that says IRS is leaving even high-income non-filers alone. That was the label of the report. And they said, IRS, why are you letting these high-income non-filers go free? Well, the answer was given in another report in 2017 because it costs too much to go after non-filers because you do not give up your rights. You maintain your right to due process. You can challenge them in tax court when you don't file. You can take that in appeal. But as a filer, you don't.
Wow.
You couldn't mess with the IRS money. All that is left to do is just a payment plan. That's why.
Wow. All right. Well, truly fascinating. And again, I really love your passion. And I think that somehow somehow we've got to stop feeding the snake that is around our throats in this country. And, we try to do that with elections. And then, of course, they rig the elections and steal power. And then they wield that power against us. And now they're wielding the power of the DOJ and the FBI and all of it. But as you say, it all links back to either the IRS or the Treasury printing money through the Fed. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure if our audience even remembers this, and I'd like your reaction, but even the COVID propaganda was funded by IRS taking money from people, funneling it through the CDC, over $1 billion of propaganda payments so that they could push out pro-vaccine propaganda through TV programs, movie scripts, and stand-up comedians. Were you aware of that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so all the money that you pay to the IRS is misused as a weapon against you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, coming from Iran, Mike, let me tell you my story a little bit. As a kid that grew up, my dad had me sit next to him, talk about politics with his friends of East versus West, Soviets in America, and Iranian politics, and Arab-Israeli conflict. And I knew the Secret Service in Iran, if they ever heard you criticizing a government, they could just take you away, put you in jail, torture you, no one knows where you're at, and without a jury trial or some judge trial, just execute you. America will become like that in time if we don't act now. They're openly doing what Stalin said. It doesn't matter who votes. It matters who counts the votes.
That's right.
And they've done that openly. And that's why the January 6th prosecutions of innocent Americans and Trump are so important to them, because I've known, you've known, the federal government is run by a bunch of crooks and criminal gangsters, but the average American did not know that. Now they're opening their hands. They're letting the average American know, look, we're a bunch of crooks and criminals like third world countries you heard about. They're desperate to shut us down. And if they do, guess what? This is it. With rigged elections at the federal government, where the battleground states are Pennsylvania, Las Vegas, Arizona, and Georgia, are stolen every time, with the major cities of those cities being crooked, rigged elections. We never get the federal government back. And in time, the U.S. Supreme Court, we just became, thanks to Trump, a 63 decent ones versus the 3 communists. We be changed again, and we're done. There's no going back. That's why we gotta fund the freedom movement by not paying the taxes that we never owed to the federal government anyways, just like the founding fathers did. George Washington, remember, these guys did not pay taxes they legally owed to the king. We're just not paying the taxes we never owed in the first place, and redirected that to honest elections, freedom lawsuits, okay? Freedom media like Brighteon could go a lot bigger if we can bring you hundreds of millions or billions. How about politicians like Ron Paul's and Rand Paul's? They need our funding to get into office, to compete with the billions and trillions of the crooked banks and corporations.
Well, you make an excellent point that the taxation is a means of suppression of targeted classes of people to make sure that no one has enough money to rise up and build an infrastructure. For example, here at Brighteon, if we weren't dealing with tax burdens all the time, we would have a lot more money to invest in the growth of the network, right? Or to donate to pro-freedom candidates, right? Mm-hmm. But here's another question for you, CBDCs. So I know you're on top of this because you're obviously a very well-informed individual, but CBDCs, and the FedNow program is launched, it's the beginning of it, and under central bank digital currencies, then taxation would be automatic because they see your wallet, they have control over your funds, they can automatically extract whatever the government thinks that you owe, and it's under that system, it's no longer even voluntary. It's just, if you use their digital system, they're just confiscating from you constantly without your consent. That day's coming, isn't it?
No, it's not coming. The reason it's not coming is because technically under the law, $1 is still an ounce of silver coin. $20 is actually an ounce of gold. And the Federal Reserve notes the green paper money represents a receipt for that. They cannot, by law, get rid of a $100 bill. What they've done is they got rid of the big bills, the $500, $1,000, $10,000 bills. So now you have to use banking to do any kind of a major transaction. And now they make it inconvenient to use cash. Many places are starting to not accept cash. They only do business with credit card. But they cannot, by law, require you to use electronic money. You can always go to a grocery store and buy groceries cash. However, the lawsuits that I intend to do at Freedom Law School to challenge the corrupt Federal Reserve system and know your customer anti-privacy laws, the who are you, to be able to close your account, not be able to buy and sell, and must have a Satan surveillance number.
Right.
To open a bank account, to buy and sell on internet, all those need to be challenged.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of funding we need. And it's going to come from the money we used to throw down the rat hole of the government gangsters. Bring it back and sue these guys just like the court of lawsuits. The court of lawsuits are working because we fought back. We need to do here too. We need the money to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the IRS relies on what I call distributed tyranny, where they force the banks to work for the IRS, just like they force accountants, or they force even online crypto exchanges to follow these KYC rules. I ran into all kinds of challenges just trying to deposit my own money and purchase crypto, or even just to get money out of regular banking systems, or even to give out donations. You know, our nonprofit was giving out a large amount of money in donations, and the banks held that up, and they thought, oh, we're not sure this is real, so they froze it, and we had to confirm it and everything. You can't do anything inside the banking system right now, Peymon, without being flagged or stopped or rate limited. It's like you don't control your money at all under this current system. So I agree with you. We need radical reforms so that we have self-custody and self-control over our own money.
Mm-hmm. And to do all this, Mike, we need money. We got the truth on our side. We have the people on our side. What they got is money, trillions. If you just take back a few billion of that to our side, now we can beat them.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have learned how to do a lot with very little resources. That's for sure. I mean, those of us in the alternative media, we're probably the best business operators in the country because we've been forced to survive in, very difficult circumstances. Censored, deplatformed, debanked, PayPal canceled all of us. And yet we're still here and in many ways growing bigger than ever before. So I just want to thank you for bringing this issue to light here today, Peymon. This is fascinating. Let me give out your website again, freedomlawschool.org. I'll just as a disclaimer to people, I'll say, look, I'm not a client. This is the first time you and I are talking, but I'm intrigued by this. And I would urge people to get educated and read your website and find out for themselves. And what would you like to add to that, Peymon, as we wrap up today's interview?
I want to say that, folks, it was not an accident that you came across this interview. You are meant to live free. You have an opportunity to educate yourself. You have a way to get out of the matrix. I am only Morpheus. Each of you is a Neo of the Matrix movie and hold the key to turn to free yourself and take part in freeing America. I'll be at the Red Pill Expo in Des Moines, Iowa on the 12th through 14th of August coming up. In Las Vegas at We Awaken America Tour coming up 25th and 26th there. And I'll be having our freedom events in Florida coming up later this year or next year. We want to expand all the freedom groups. Let me just add this. You might not know this, Mike, but we sponsored the Pandemic 3 documentary, The Great Awakening, with 6-digit donations.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, 6-digit donation. How do we do that? Because our students, they said, I'm not going to fund the evil. I'm going to keep significant portion of my funds, but I'm going to give some of it all over for you, Peymon, to redirect it to all this. Stu Peters is, we want to support, we have been supporting him. You and other truth freedom platforms, we want to support you because you are key in getting this movement out there and for people to realize we have power. We're not weak. They want us to believe we are weak and we have more power. So regain your power with knowledge. Go to freedomlawschool.org and call us. We'll be happy to guide you through if you have any questions.
Hey, I love that message and I love that empowerment and just remind folks, look, there's nothing to lose. I mean, just educate yourself, get information, go to the website, learn about this. I'm certainly going to check out the website more for myself, probably send it to my accountants and they'll say, oh no, you can't do that. And I'm saying, you work for the IRS, don't you? Because they do. I'm sure they do. But I'm going to get educated as well, Peymon. And is it okay if I ask you questions or have a follow-up interview with you?
Absolutely. We'll love the opportunity.
Okay, let's do that. Let's keep in touch. Stay on after I close this out so I can give you my contact details. And I'd love to hear success stories as well, because I also think that the dollar collapse is coming. We're looking at an implosion of Washington, D.C. I believe there's going to come a day when the IRS simply cannot function at all anyway. And probably we're going to see the breakup of the United States. That's not what I want to see, but it might happen at least temporarily before there's a new union again. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but we need to think about how to function in a financial environment where Washington, D.C. collapses like the Soviet Union did in '91, because I think that day's coming. Do you think that day's coming?
Absolutely. That's one of my visions. 1992, when all his hair was black, Mike, that was my vision. That we're going to restore freedom by redirecting our money from our enemies to this side. And now, after decades of working at this, I truly, realistically see this happening, my friends.
Okay, excellent. Well, you have to visualize it to make it happen. So thank you so much, Peymon. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I really appreciate you. And just so glad that you're here in America. And some of the most amazing people that I've met and interviewed have been immigrants from sometimes Iran, as you say, and people from Iraq as well, and people from Eastern Europe, and some from former Soviet Union membership states that are now freedom-loving Americans because they know what's at stake here. More than kind of homegrown Americans, it seems. People who came to America tend to realize the value of what America really stands for. So I want to thank you for acknowledging that.
My pleasure, Mike.
All right. Well, take care, Peymon, and God bless you. And again, just hang on so I can talk with you. But folks, another fascinating interview here at Brighteon.com. We really work to bring you some of the brightest minds and best people who have solutions, practical solutions, so that you can restore your freedom. And that can come in lots of different ways. It could be finance and money. It could be food freedom. It could be medical freedom. It could be education freedom, lots of things. But I hope you take this interview to heart and do your research and check it out and spread the word. And as always, you can repost this interview on other channels and platforms as well. And thank you for your support of our network, Brighteon.com, because you won't find this kind of interview typically on YouTube or Facebook or anything like that, because it would probably be banned, but not here on Brighteon. So thank you for watching. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon.com. God bless America, and take care. Today's interview is brought to you by HealthRangerStore.com, where we sell lab-tested, certified organic superfoods and high-end nutritional supplements. And everything we sell is lab-tested for glyphosate and heavy metals, as well as microbiology, including E. coli, salmonella, yeast and mold, and total plate count. We also test for aflatoxins on some of our products. In addition, we're rolling out atrazine testing across many products that we carry, such as cashews. And we're going to be adding dioxin testing later this year as that capability is added to our laboratory. Now, some of the products that you may want to consider, I've got on my desk right here. Freeze-dried blueberries and mangoes are just two of the many fruits that we have in number 10 cans. They're freeze-dried, again, certified organic and laboratory tested. We've got goji berries and superfruit seed powder, which is delicious to put into any smoothie or drink. You can blend it with bananas or frozen strawberries. It's absolutely delicious. Macadamia nuts, just amazing. Also, of course, lab tested. Watch out for glyphosate on nut crops, by the way, because that can be used by some farmers. Whey protein there, again, laboratory tested, ultra clean, high nutrient density, no toxic fillers or garbage ingredients in any of the products that we sell. Check all of this out at healthrangerstore.com. Do yourself some good. And you can also use this as storable food for emergencies because, of course, in the number 10 cans, it's packaged for long-term shelf viability. These are rodent-proof cans. They're sealed, and you open them with a regular can opener, and then you can enjoy these, frankly, for many years after you've purchased them. Freeze-dried foods available right now at healthrangerstore.com. And we thank you for your support because every purchase at our store supports this network and our message of health freedom and free speech for Americans and, frankly, all of humanity. Thank you for watching. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon.com and the founder of healthrangerstore.com. God bless you. Take care. A global reset is coming. And that's why I've recorded a new 9-hour audiobook. It's called The Global Reset Survival Guide. You can download it for free by subscribing to the naturalnews.com email newsletter, which is also free. I'll describe how the monetary system fails. I also cover emergency medicine and first aid and what to buy to help you avoid infections. So download this guide. It's free. It's my gift to you simply because I want like-minded people to survive.